Okay, we are just after 2 o'clock, and I think we can go ahead and get started. We've got a good group. It looks like people are still coming in, but they'll be able to hopefully catch up. Hi, everyone. It's Jason McDuff again from Greenpenny. Thanks so much for joining us. I think in this session, it's a little bit different than the ones we've been doing the rest of today. So we all have control over our own microphones and, of course, our own video as well. So please, if you're not talking, if you could keep your mic on mute, that'd be great. So we could stay focused on the conversation. And then if you want to raise a question, Katrina, who's on the line, is going to be following the chat. We will do our best to, I will do my best to moderate. I'm not the best multitasker though, so Katrina's going to help me out. And we will definitely open it up for questions periodically. So don't worry if we're going through the conversation and you've got a question, we'll open it up to the floor to ask. We really want this to be interactive. So thanks very much for that. Our panelists, I'm going to go ahead and ask them to introduce themselves. As I said this morning, the subject of this industry conversation is really about energy districts and how energy districts can make a big difference in creating clean energy communities, which of course is the theme for today. So we've got folks from the Winneshiek Energy District, and we've got folks from a new energy district in Iowa County, Wisconsin. Why don't we start with Andy? If you could introduce yourself, please. Where are you from and what brought you into clean energy? I should ask that too.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Johnson. I'm with the Winneshiek Energy District over here in Decorah, Northeast Iowa, Winneshiek County, Iowa. I actually grew up here, dairy farm and Christmas tree farm, and we still run the farm, my wife and kids and I, and it's probably my kids that brought me into energy. I've been involved in natural resources and conservation for a long, long time and moved away from USDA, moving back here, got into community energy conversations, which we'll delve into in this talk later. But, you know, sustainable energy is a natural resource issue and climate change is clearly a societal issue. And we decided we needed to address that. So I dug in with so many others.
That's great. Joel, how about you? Same question for you.
Here we are, unmute. Yeah, I'm also from Decorah, Iowa, and I'm here now in Winneshiek County. And I've been working with the Energy District for just about 10 years now as we celebrate our 10th anniversary. I got into energy, my undergrad is in architecture. And so I kind of got into energy by way of building science and had a good opportunity to start at the Energy District when we had a great grant to start off kind of the real work of beyond just the Energy District as an idea. And worked with homeowners in and around Decorah on making retrofits to their homes, very much focused on energy efficiency at the start. And it's been fun to transition into seeing how solar and renewables are really competing with those energy efficiency upgrades as well.
Great. Okay, Chuck, how about you?
Hello, everybody. Chuck Tennessen. I'm with Driftless Area Land Conservancy here in Iowa County, Wisconsin, the county west of Madison. And I've been interested in energy issues for a long time also. We built our passive solar home back 35 years ago already and worked with local environmental groups here in the area for a number of years. I'm with Driftless Area Land Conservancy, which is the land trust for Southwest Wisconsin. Land trusts usually don't get involved in energy issues. However, we were sort of pushed that direction when some of our conservation easements were threatened with a huge transmission line, which we're still battling in court, actually. And so we built up a constituency of folks that were interested in energy issues. And so our conservancy has decided to explore this energy district option for our area. And we're quite excited to be moving in that direction.
Great. That's so interesting. All right. Ben, how about you?
Ben, hi, I'm Ben Grimstad. I'm the president of Decorah Bank and Trust Company, also in Decorah, Iowa. And so we're a family and employee-owned community bank. And as part of the community, we have partnered with a lot of these folks to learn more about all these wonderful renewable energy projects. And so we've been a partner with Winneshiek Energy District, and we've gotten involved in heavily involved in financing projects, both now here in Northeast Iowa, and now we've started a virtual bank called Greenpenny. And so our hope is to take that out further and help finance a sustainable tomorrow for more people and more projects in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So happy to be part of this today.
That's great. Ben's my boss, everybody, so be nice to me. And I'm Jason McDuff. I introduced myself this morning, but I came to clean energy by way of being pretty well uninspired after working 24 years at one of the largest banks in the country, and took some time off of my career and went and traveled and went to some amazing places on the planet, the Galapagos Islands and South American Patagonia and Antarctica, and learned a lot about climate change and actually spent a lot of time with scientists. And then you're in those places, so you see the actual effects of what's happening, and you learn about what our potential future would be if we don't reduce the rate of climate warming. So I came back, and lo and behold, in my own backyard, my family has lived for generations. I'm so grateful to have found Greenpenny, and I'm very inspired to lead this brand and see what we can do to help finance a sustainable tomorrow. And I'm also going to be your moderator for this conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of our panelists here one question to take up probably about 20 minutes or so of the conversation, and then we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. And we're hoping that the rest of the time is taken up with some really good questions from everyone here. And let's get started. So Andy, we're going to start with you. And for those who don't know, we this morning we talked about Winneshiek Energy District. It was mentioned it's one of the first, if not the first, in the country. But for those people who don't know what an energy district is, could you explain it, and then talk a little bit about how the district went from an idea to an actual organization?
Sure. All in 5 minutes, huh, Jason?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, Jason and Ben, for sponsoring this, and my colleagues, and also MREA, because these conferences are great. And, it's hard to pull off virtual from what used to be in person, but it's good to be here. Yeah, I mentioned briefly that we started up about 10 years ago. And I do want to recognize, of course, that while, yes, Winneshiek Energy District is the first energy district in the nation, and we're proud of that, there have been community-led clean energy efforts around the country for a long time. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really start that idea by any means, but we are unique. And so the uniqueness of the energy districts really goes all the way back to what we modeled ourselves after, which were the soil and water conservation districts that grew out of the original New Deal. Now, we could spend a whole hour just talking about those, so we'll try not to, but it's important to note a few things about the original soil and water conservation districts, which were formed to address the conservation problems, the conservation and economic problems of the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression across rural America. And the federal government was starting some agencies and had technical experts and people they were farming out, sending out across the country throughout the 30s, actually, and realized pretty quickly that without local leadership everywhere, they couldn't solve a lot of the problems that needed to be solved in both conservation and rural economic development and the combination. And so they developed this model of soil and water districts to create a universal local, a structure that could happen everywhere. And they settled on the county level because counties are geographically inclusive, 100%, right? You connect up the county lines and we've got everybody in that pot. And then they created a system that was not just local, but a local, state, federal partnership to channel resources, to provide technical assistance. And they created a policy environment to do that. And the soil and water conservation districts were born. They were allowed to grow. They weren't mandated by any governmental level, but the policy environment was created so that they could establish. And within about a decade, a little bit more, we had soil and water conservation districts through local leadership in virtually every county in this country. So it's a story that's an amazing story. Most people don't understand it very well. They're still around, but the changes that partnership, not just the districts, but that state, federal, local partnership created are just amazing. We would not have our rural America that we have today without it. So fast forward a long time, like I said, the districts are still there. The agencies in USDA that deal with conservation are still there. That's part of my background. I worked in USDA for conservation for nearly a decade, and then moved back here to Northeast Iowa. During even that time, had been getting increasingly involved in clean energy, climate issues. USDA has been working actually on that, surprise, surprise, for quite a long time. Some may not realize that. Back here in Northeast Iowa, there were already folks, we moved back, my family and I, in 2007. There were many conversations being had. There were many leaders already doing things. The bank that Jason and Ben are with had already been working hard on energy efficiency and working on their carbon footprint. Our community government, our local government had been having those conversations. Luther College here in Decorah was already a leader. So a lot of things were happening, and what our community conversations essentially were leading to is, how do we do this faster? How do we accelerate this? How do we do this community wide? How do we really bring change about that includes everybody and that is also about ownership and economic development as much as it is about stewardship? So we put those two things together. One of the pieces that I brought to the conversation was just that history of soil and water conservation districts as an organizing model. And so we all eventually agreed, hey, let's try to create a new organization that's not just a town, a community sustainability group, but that is more inclusive geographically and socioeconomically, and we settled on that model. So a couple, just to stop rambling, and a few key characteristics of this model, which Joel's going to then talk more about in terms of what we've actually accomplished. That county level geographic inclusivity does also promote socioeconomic inclusivity. We try and work with everyone when it comes to the technical assistance we do, the community engagement we do. We also try and partner vertically, in other words, with the state and the federal government where we can. There's a lot of policy work to be done there. And that's what our network as it grows is really focusing on. And another piece that's really important, technical assistance. Every energy user knows, oh, I could save a lot of money if only I did this. And it's nobody's priority, in large part because nobody really knows exactly what we should be doing or doing first, or what it would cost, et cetera, et cetera. So you've all heard of energy audits. Many of them are too superficial to matter. So we're trying to build a system of technical assistance of energy planning that actually gets people the information they need and helps them make those changes. Homes, farms, businesses, institutions, all of that. So with that background, I'll be quiet now and pass the torch.
Oh, thank you, Andy. That's really good. And a lot of what has happened over the last couple of days has been about talking about how we are inclusive and that clean energy communities are for everybody in the community, not just certain groups.
You are men.
So
you are white.
Oh, somebody I think is not on mute.
Oops.
That's okay. That's all right. Thanks. So with that, Joel, we mentioned it's 10 years that the Winneshiek Energy District has been around. What's been accomplished in that time?
Yeah, well, Andy mentioned a little bit about the importance of technical assistance. And so while we do outreach, community outreach, and we talk a lot about market transformation, and we do some policy stuff as well, we really do believe that boots on the ground work is where things really get done. And part of that is doing the technical assistance to let people know what they are, what the potential for savings is. And so we're going to have two tiers to that program. We are a host site of an AmeriCorps team that goes out and does simple home assessments. They do a blower door test. They change out all the light bulbs in the house, and our team does about 100 or so. Every year is a little bit more than 100. So we've done over 1,000 homes in Winneshiek County and throughout the area. And the average person in those receiving those services are saving over $100 a year on their utility bills. And those are not exclusively, but they are very much largely low to moderate income households as well as seniors. Those people can get the service for free, and then we do offer that service to at a cost to those that are able and willing to pay for it. So beyond that is a great first step. It does a lot of big first step impacts in people's homes and can save a lot of money, even with kind of a simple intervention that only takes an hour or two in someone's home. But I do also offer some of the technical assistance to small business owners or to farms who are interested in energy efficiency or renewable energy. And through one way or the other, we're going to try to connect them with all the services and rebates that we can, either through their utility. We're oftentimes working with farmers to get them hooked into USDA programs, which have very good cost share opportunities. And then letting people know too about what tax credits are available if they're looking at investing in renewable energy. To take it back a little bit further to what you said about, just sort of outing our accomplishments. One of the things that I really like to show too is that as far as tracking that, the state of Iowa offers a state tax credit. It's in addition to the federal solar investment tax credit. And while we were tracking those the first few years, Winneshiek County was actually had the highest number of residential installs in the state as we got started. And since then, Polk County, which is where Des Moines, our capital, is, and then Lynn County and Johnson County, which are the number 2 and 3 cities by population, have caught up with us. But we're still way ahead here in Winneshiek County in that per capita solar installs. We did some basic math, and at some point during this last summer, we figured that we've got a panel for every person in Winneshiek County. So that's fun. And we know that the Energy District is helping drive that change forward and really highlighting what the benefits of solar are to people and making sure that that people know about it. But of course, it's just part of an ecosystem that we're in. A lot of solar installers jumped into the game. And one of the reasons that we have so much solar, this is a virtuous cycle, but is because we have, in a relatively small area, we have 6 or so well-qualified solar installers, and they all want your business, and they all do minimal advertising, and they just stick a solar sticker on the side of all their vans that they've got running around, so people know that they're installers, and they're able to install solar, I don't know, 10 or 20, 30 cents a watt cheaper than folks in other areas are. So I don't know, anything else you want me to follow up with there?
Well, there is one, because we talked about, and you guys I know often talk about the economic benefits to the community by all the investments that have gone into solar and renewable energies and the multiplier effect of that. I thought maybe you could touch on that real quick before we go to Ben.
Oh man, I don't remember those numbers. Andy, do you have, we pulled numbers together for our 10 years of talking about what we estimated that we've caused in terms of sort of energy efficiency and renewable energy inputs investments. Andy?
Yeah, I think we figure we've seen just in Winneshiek County, and actually a lot of our work has spilled over into our neighboring counties, but just in Winneshiek, probably about $18 million invested in solar. This is a rural Iowa county of 20,000 people. I think we figured the wealth retention and creation here in around 30 million over the lifespan of those panels, the job creation, both initial and over time with that wealth creation of about 200. And frankly, that's still just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that's big on a per capita basis, but that's just the beginning.
Yep, that's right. Good. Well, thank you guys. That's great. And Chuck, so we got the story of a relatively mature energy district that's continuing to move forward. And as Andy just said, and Joel, lots of initiatives still to continue to improve. What's going on with Iowa County, Wisconsin, and your energy district there?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. And boy, oh boy, what a terrific role model. We're so lucky to have all the work that Winneshiek County has done. And they've been very helpful in getting information to us and helping support us get started. So thank you, folks. We're very, very appreciative. Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, we typically a land conservancy doesn't deal with energy issues, but we sort of got pushed into it. And we have had a lot of folks that never heard of us before, but were interested in supporting our efforts to not have this huge industrial scale transmission line come through our county. And so people started talking about what do we want? This is what we don't want. And so with the help of Winneshiek County and others, we pulled together interested individuals and began having some meetings, and this was just a year ago, actually, and we had some public meetings about what an energy district could do for us. We formed what we called a steering committee of about 15 interested folks, and we together began building a little framework following the model of Winneshiek County, and seeing how we could create the same thing here in Iowa County. So we're still in the process of doing that, but as we're building, I guess I'll mention this. So as a stepping stone, we've created an organization we call CLEAN, which is an acronym for Clean Local Energy Alliance -now. And it's not an energy district. It's associated very closely with our land conservancy, which is supporting it in a number of ways. And that's kind of our stepping stone to becoming an independent district like those in Iowa, the state of Iowa. But as we're working on building that framework, that didn't seem to be as much fun as actually getting our fingers into some projects. And so we began to do that also. And we've had one project that we're modeling after one's done that we've seen in Winneshiek and other counties, and that's an LED light bulb exchange. We have a couple of very dedicated co-chairs on that. We're very pleased. We've launched it in November, this past November. We've gotten almost 4,000 bulbs into Iowa County homes already, and we're partnering with the regional healthcare provider to give free LED bulbs to all their workers. And so that's going to mean they'll get a package of totaling almost 5,000 more LED bulbs. So we're very grateful for that first step. It's getting our name out. People are finding out who we are. The second project that we're beginning to explore and get more exposure about is we're hoping to build a community solar installation here in Iowa County. We've begun conversations with Alliant Energy, which is a utility provider in this area, and with community leaders. And so that's our, as this light bulb exchange continues, that's our next project. I guess I would have to add that we are just so fortunate for some of the supporters we've had. Again, the model of Winneshiek and others, but then Wisconsin also has what's known as the Wisconsin Climate Table, which is a table, a collection of environmental groups that share ideas and initiatives, and we do have some funding through that. We were with Renew, we partnered on a small grant from the Wisconsin Climate Table, so that helped support us to get started. We were very fortunate. We are continuing to be very fortunate. We have a local donor who has committed to supporting our efforts for this year, and the next 3 years after that. So that's given us a nice financial foundation to do some work with. And then because we're a land trust, we actually were able to write and got accepted for a land trust alliance grant. So just as an idea of where some of our funding has come from. Finally, I guess I would just say we're continuing to formalize our relationship as an energy district, and how we're going to either continue to be sort of a subsidiary of the Conservancy, or whether we soon, we hope, may be an independent district just like those in Iowa County.
Very good. Well, thank you, Chuck.
The state of Iowa.
The state of Iowa. Yep. That's great. Thank you so much. Ben, why don't you talk about, and Andy mentioned it, the bank's role in creating clean energy communities here in our area, and the bank's philosophy around supporting the community.
You bet. Happy to. So I'll share a little bit about what we've done and kind of how we got there. As I said, we're a family and employee-owned community bank in Decorah, Iowa. And the journey really starts with my dad. So 20 years ago, my dad ran the bank. He retired from the bank. And, a lot of retired bankers would go out and spend all their time on the golf course. not my dad. He decided, he gained this new passion for the environment. And so he got really involved, and, he's one of the first to be driving a hybrid car and installing solar panels and wind turbines. And we kind of thought this guy's a little crazy, right? Well, along the way, he convinced my brother and I, who are now the next generation of bankers in the family, to really pay attention to this. And so many years ago, we made it a core value of our bank to be good to Mother Earth. And so, a lot of the decisions we make, we make sure to consider that. So over the years, we've invested in 100% LED lighting and drive fuel efficient cars, and change our practices and reduce waste. And we've covered every roof we have with solar panels. And so we've tried to reduce our energy consumption down to about as low as we can. And then last year we became one of, I think, only the few carbon neutral banks in the country with the help of Winneshiek Energy District. So, we couldn't get our carbon emissions all the way down to zero. So we buy carbon tags through Winneshiek Energy District. So all the good work they do, they turn some of those energy savings with community members into carbon tags. And so the bank then invests in those carbon tags, which is great for, for us, and it's great for the community because it just keeps money circulating in our local economy. And so by buying those carbon tags, we were able to get our carbon footprint down to zero last year. So kind of an exciting thing and really fun to watch and track. I mean, even such small things as a coffee maker in the break room, if you just put that thing on a timer, it's amazing how much energy that uses at night heating the water, which you don't need to do. And so, just learning all those things has been really fun. And we wouldn't have learned all that stuff without the inspiration from the people at Winneshiek Energy District. So, you asked, well, why would other financial institutions get involved or consider doing some of these things?
Yeah.
There's three big reasons. I mean, bankers like to see a return on investment, and clearly, we believe that it's very easy to value energy savings and what you're paying to utilities, and instead you can make investments and save that money or pay it off over time. And so it's pretty easy to see a positive returns on investment, and so we like it for that reason. Number two, as Andy mentioned, I mean, this has created, or Joel, this has created a lot of jobs. I mean, this has created a ton of work in our local economy. And so what the Energy District has done in the Winneshiek County area has been probably one of the best investments we've made by supporting them. And then number three, of course, is just the right thing to do. Anytime you can save and reduce carbon emissions and combat climate change, all of our businesses and we all depend on our environment. So it just makes sense. So it's a win-win-win. As a community bank, we were doing some of these things locally. We financed a lot of local projects, a lot of local solar projects. We invested ourselves in it. So we decided to launch Greenpenny 6 months ago. And Greenpenny is simply a virtual bank. It's a virtual branch of ourselves with a mission of just helping others further out make these investments in clean renewable energy. So our hope is that people will put money in Greenpenny, deposit their money there, and that money can only be used for good purposes to finance these clean renewable purposes. So it's kind of a mission-based bank. And so it's pretty exciting. It's fun. We're getting some traction and learning a lot. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's great. And really open to suggestions and ideas too. So, but we, even though Greenpenny is new, you can tell from the story you just heard that it comes from a deep history and commitment to doing our part, which is to help finance these things, finance clean and renewable energy, to do what we can to combat the problem of climate change. And I just want to acknowledge, by the way, that Larry Grimstad, who is Ben's dad, is in the session. So I don't know if he'll pop in and say anything, and I'm not going to ask him to unless he wants to, but he's here, and we're glad to see you, Larry. With that, we'd love it if you have some questions for the panel, for us. Simply unmute and ask your question. If you could introduce yourself and where you're from, that'd be great too.
Jason, this is Katrina, Greenpenny's communication director. There, Sherry Gruder came through on the group chat, which I will remind everyone at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can see the chat button, and you're welcome to ask a question that way, and I am happy to address that for you. or you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and stop your video or open your video up and show us who you are and ask those questions. But I'm going to address Sherry Gruder's comment, and this was during the time when Joel Zook was talking from Winneshiek Energy District, and her comment is, this sounds similar to the university extension model. So I found that as a great comment. And oh, Sherry, I just see you popped on. I don't know if you wanted to add to that or if there's anything that either one of you want to add to that discussion.
Well, it struck me because of both the federal, state, and local visibility, but also the technical assistance and the technical assistance with different sectors. And so, for extension, it's different because we don't compete with the private sector. So it's not like we're out there doing the assessments like you're doing. But I really love that you're using the core out there of people, training them and giving them jobs to go out and do assessments. But anyway, it's a wonderful model, and I just saw a lot of similarities. So I just wanted to bring that up. And I know you have extension in Iowa, but this is came out of the water conservation, land conservation district, so it's different. Anyway, just noticing that. I think they could be good partners too.
I see a lot of head nodding. Any comment there from Energy District guys?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think the extension is an important partner. And when I was with the USDA, actually, I don't know if I mentioned, I was specifically working with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. So that's the federal agency that is the task partner with this local soil and water districts. We work closely with extension. In the energy districts, we have worked closely with extension as well too. And the one piece of the energy district model as such, that's a little bit different than both NRCS and extension, is the creation of that actual entity at the county level. That is, in soil and water districts, a locally elected board. In energy districts, so far, we're a nonprofit board, but we're working towards potentially that state partnership where energy districts would be state authorized, state enabled organizations, and thereby sort of the official local implementers for much of clean energy policy. But I agree with you. It's very similar and close partnership organizations.
Good. Yeah. What other questions are out there? And we'll give you a second to think about it.
Jason, I see there's a question on the comments there. I get that there's financing for renewable energy systems. Are you also financing deep energy efficiency? Payback there can be longer, harder to find lenders. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is yes, we would be happy to look at those things. You're right, it's a little more difficult, but every deal is different. That's what we're finding in this is that, and so a community bank, one of the benefits there is we can be flexible enough and creative enough to try to find a solution. And so sometimes a bank's going to want to take a mortgage on a property to help. In this case, that might make sense. In some cases, there are, the CPACE program. I think Wisconsin, some counties have that available. Iowa does not, by the way, and we're hoping that Iowa adopts that someday. But so CPACE can be a good tool for that. But I think each lender is going to be different on that. All I can say is that we want to do everything we can to help people with those kinds of projects. And energy efficiency is probably is more important to do first before you do the renewable energy production. So we get that. And if there's usually a way to find to do it. But every case is different.
Yeah, we have, and I think we, just to pile on what Ben just said, which is right on, we very much believe that electrification of homes and businesses is going to be a really important part of tackling the climate problem. And, of course, that starts largely with solar. And so we're leaning in on solar, and we've got great partners, the Winneshiek Energy District we're talking to, but others too, where we are gaining insight into how we can think about efficiency. And lending on that. And, imagine a day when, we might have some lending options that are all about the electrification of homes and businesses. So not just the solar, but the elements within, and that might include some efficiency elements. Maybe it even starts with a really comprehensive real energy audit, like Joel was describing, as sort of a part of a program like that. So we're open to ideas, and we can see lots of different options in the future. For right now, we're focused on solar as a means of getting our start, but we're certainly open to more in the future. Any other questions out there? We've got a couple more coming in from the chat I can see. So Katrina, maybe you can read the next one.
Absolutely. Kurt, are you with us? Kurt has
I am. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can, Kurt. Hi.
Hi, Jason. Hi, team. Hi, group panel. I'm very, very impressed with this model of lending and basically community solar or community clean energy financing. I work with Legacy Solar of Wisconsin Cooperative, and we do a lot of solar and energy efficiency financing kind of on a piecemeal basis, one-on-one with individual community institutions. So I'm really, really happy to see you guys in this space and that you're flourishing in Iowa. In Wisconsin, just riffing a little bit off of what Chuck was talking about with respect to efforts that are going on in Iowa County. I did try to work with Iowa County a few years ago with an OEI grant to implement solar on a couple of the buildings in Dodgeville, Wisconsin. And that was going to include more resiliency measures like battery storage, which is up and coming. It's going to be a bigger part of, I think, the financial pool of energy financing is some of it's going to go to battery storage and grid stability and resiliency and that sort of thing. But what I wanted to ask you, since you've introduced this concept of energy districts, and it seems like it worked really, really well. And what I'm seeing is, and what I'm hearing is that for the residential and small commercial, that this is a really good answer. But how does an energy district, how can an energy district help coordinate energy financing for community institutions like municipalities, churches, libraries, and schools? And that's because that's really the community institution demographic that Legacy Solar Co-op works with. And rather than doing it piecemeal, we're hoping to work with Renew Wisconsin and apply for an OEI grant to help school districts all over the state take this on so that they can do comprehensive energy planning and implementation of energy related projects. So how can energy districts like you guys are talking about, how can you work hand in hand or side by side with community institutions like school districts?
Yeah. Chuck, Joel, or Andy, you want to talk about it from the energy district side, and then I certainly think we can offer something on the bank side as well.
Yeah, I can jump in, or I can try to anyways, and we can see how, this isn't a direct answer to your question because we actually haven't had the same issue right here. We have had a number of installers that are either located in Decorah or close enough nearby in Iowa that are offering power purchase agreements themselves. And whether that means that the installer themselves is the investor, or if they're going around and they're finding investors, a lot of times it's usually farmers that have a lot of passive income from land that they're semi-retired on and are renting out. So the city directly to the west of us, Cresco, is maybe 4 or 5 years into putting solar on nearly all of their buildings and are financing that through a power purchase agreement. And then coming up on year 7 when that power purchase agreement will end, and they're looking at purchasing that outright. And so what we've really been doing as far as there's people out there that can offer power purchase agreements already. So what we've been doing is touting that model. We recently, just this fall, had a tour down in another surrounding county, West Union, where that they've put a dozen solar installs up at their city and in their school district. And so we had a tour of local officials from Decorah come down to West Union and see. And so that those gears are thinking, and they're thinking about it, and we're reminding them, hey, the tax credits are set to phase out and expire. So if you want to sign a PPA and get solar on, on City Hall and on the library and the police department, the fire department, all the roads, you should get started on it now. So we've been really pushing through that, and we're lucky enough that we've got solar installers that offer power purchase agreements through themselves. So it's not a perfect answer to your question, but at least that's how we're handling it here.
That's good. And Ben, maybe we can talk about how we're financing PPA deals and have done that and want to do more of it.
Yeah, and that's really the easiest way for a bank to do it, because it's simply, we take assignments of those power purchase agreements and the land leases and the interconnect agreements. And so our collateral then becomes that cash flow or that revenue stream. And so we've had a lot of luck financing those things. And so any nonprofit that wants to invest in this kind of thing, the challenge for them is to find that higher net worth or higher income earning person who can be that tax credit investor. And then the bank comes in, and we're happy to finance those things, and have done quite a few. So I don't know if we answered your question exactly, Kurt, but.
Am I still unmuted at this point?
No, you're muted. You're unmuted. We can hear you. Oh, now you're, yeah, there you go.
Very good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I toggled back and forth. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, I think Ben and Joel, that does begin to answer the question. I mean, we actually do our own version of solar services agreements, which is all inclusive of it's more akin, I think, to energy performance contracting, that we have done with community institutions all over the state. So I guess the question was really, how does an energy district help directly with the rollout of planning and implementation for either a municipality or a school district, which is what I'm interested in working with.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just jump in maybe for a minute and add to what Joel was talking about. I mean, I mentioned earlier that we really try hard to be quality technical assistance leaders. So so Joel is, for example, our technical lead right now. Joel has worked directly with over a dozen communities just in the last couple of years on solar policy, on the SolSmart program with DOE. So what that's getting at is building the connections with local leadership, with local governments, with school districts, getting the engagement and the education happening there, and then having a place for them to turn to as they start thinking about this. So on the one hand, of course, on the other hand, you can go all the way down to solar site assessments and actually running some numbers for them. But what we found especially for local governments, oftentimes is it's getting the leadership in those local governments to a level of comfort and familiarity that says, oh yeah, oh, this makes sense. This isn't just a pie in the sky thing. This is a business opportunity. We need to grab hold of it and do it. And so, essentially trying to be the local go-to for information, the trusted source, is an important role that we've played. And interestingly, there are about 10 energy districts now in Eastern Iowa, and many are just getting their legs under them, or don't have the resources we've had, or don't have in-house technical assistance. And yet together, when we share that knowledge, they are still able in many cases to reach out. And we have great examples in other counties to their local leadership because they're part of the community. So, here it's not just someone from the government coming in or someone from industry that they might think is trying to sell them something, but here's a local organization that is there just to help with the clean energy transition. And they talk to us and they talk to their local school board, and they bring them to a workshop. 3 years ago, there was a workshop in a neighboring county, 3 or 4, sponsored by that energy district. They didn't have any in-house technical people, but they brought together all their school leadership and their municipal leadership from their county and a couple other counties. There are a whole bunch of solar systems in local schools and governments that came out of that workshop. So it's a convening and relationship building as well as much as a technical assistance process. Yeah.
That's great.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Thanks, group.
You bet. You bet. I see we have a question for Chuck in the chat. Chuck, what are some of the difficulties Iowa County has faced in trying to pursue the energy district model? What recommendations would you give for other rural counties rather trying to develop their own energy district?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And actually, great segue from Andy's closing comments about building relationships. That has been what we've been striving to do to get people educated about this model and about the need for this model, or doing something that, this climate crisis is a crisis that we need to address, and that there are positive ways to do it that'll benefit everyone, including financially and environmentally. So what could other rural districts do? I would say you need to get in touch with Winneshiek County. They have a toolkit for beginning districts. They are extremely helpful. So that would be my first recommendation. Then what we did is sponsor a number. We found at this very conference last year, we talked to a number of folks in the energy business who were willing to give talks about energy savings in general and all these different things, PP, power purchase agreements, and the like. And we sponsored a series of workshops about that. And through that, some community members who really didn't know what we were doing got attracted to a workshop, and then they learned a little bit more about what we're doing. And actually, that's where we found our dynamite co-chairs for our LED exchange program. They sort of popped out of, we would never have guessed that they were going to be strong leaders. So that's what we've done. We just continue to try and get our message out to educate folks and tell them of the benefits, and do get our name there in the public, doing quote unquote good by giving away LED bulbs and then and the like. So that would be my quick responses to that.
That's great. Thank you, Chuck. Before we go back to the chat, does anybody want to ask a question live? I thought I'd open it up real quick. Okay, we'll go back to chat. We're getting some really good questions, so thank you for that. Let's see, another question. Very interesting to hear another outcome from the New Deal rural development programs coupled with cooperative and credit union movements. Is there any history of applying this in more urban areas, such as Milwaukee County, where I live? That question's from Stephen. So I suppose, Andy, I'll maybe ask you, how have these kind of models worked in urban counties? That's a good question. I'm interested in the answer to that one too. Do you know? I think you're on mute, Andy.
Yep, sorry.
There you go. No worries.
We are getting there, but I had said check back in a couple of years maybe, because we as the energy district movement grows, there are energy districts right now in Dubuque, Iowa, Dubuque County, in Cedar Rapids area, Lynn County, Iowa City, Johnson County, and Des Moines, Polk County. So these are 4 of our large metro areas, obviously. But there are largely just getting their legs under them and figuring out how exactly they want to work. If you think about soil and water districts focused on rural areas, that makes sense because they're focused on land-based problems. But energy districts, if anything, are way more applicable to any county in the country because we're focused on energy users. Well, urban areas just have, orders of magnitude more energy users and energy use. So the real big tools that we try and approach the issue, technical assistance, market transformation, community investment, community engagement, and then at times advocacy, those are applicable everywhere. The challenge for the urban districts is really just, whoa, we have 10 or 100 times as much work to do. So part of what they are starting to look very hard at, initially anyway, maybe hopefully as a little bit of an answer to the question, is a focus on neighborhoods, frontline neighborhoods. can an energy district like Polk County say, look, we're not really going to try and serve all of Polk County, all of Des Moines right now. We're going to really focus in on frontline neighborhoods, work with those neighborhoods then to develop steering committees or some sort of local leadership and bring resources to bear into those neighborhoods. So that is one strategy that Polk anyway is working very hard on already. A place like Dubuque has already been doing some more work with, for example, local governments, working on that as that convener model with solar, and working essentially with the sustainability planning efforts. So there's a broad spectrum, but absolutely they're applicable to urban areas, and the challenges are just even bigger.
Yeah, makes sense.
And opportunity. Sorry.
Yep. All right, good. Katrina, do we have any other questions in the chat?
We do. We have Sherry again. She made a nice comment with a question, and it says she was talking about a question on propane, moving to air source heat pumps, moving more electrification. Are the districts and the bank funding that? I don't know,
Well, it is
Sherry,
a really exciting opportunity. You know, I think that to the degree that we're funding it, we're not funding it, but if I can answer your question, at least in a more oblique sort of way, we are really excited about that opportunity for electrification. I mean, everywhere, but I would argue that rural areas get to lead on this, or they should be at least, because the cost for them is more significant. I mean, Sherry mentions propane. Propane is a good 50%, maybe sometimes twice as expensive as the delivered cost of energy compared to natural gas. So the motivation for homeowners and business owners as well in rural areas that are served by propane or any type of delivered fuel it is even better. So the economics are already there to be looking at 100% electrification if you don't have a natural gas hookup. And to further that theme, generally speaking, people in rural areas are going to be driving more and also have a place to park and plug in electric vehicles. So we've just got to either wait for electric pickups to show up or convince some of our country neighbors that driving a car is okay. And there's a really huge opportunity for folks to be cutting their commuting costs significantly.
And we're going to learn more about a lot of these newer technologies. We're going to learn about how long they last, because that's a question we ask a lot as a bank, so we can figure out how to finance them, right? We need to understand how to structure so that it makes sense for our borrower, it also makes sense for us. And so we're actively trying to get data on everything from battery storage systems to other types of heating systems because as we think about the electrification of homes and businesses, we got to know the components and at what point does it make sense and economic sense for our borrower too, obviously not just for us to start to finance some of those things. And so we're actively looking at it, Sherry.
And just if I could add one quick comment to that too. We are very excited, as Joel said, about electrification. The technologies are coming along. Heat pumps, for example, right now as a whole home heating system are on the edge, iffy, depending on your home and everything. Of course, mini splits, for example, are highly efficient, but down to zero, below that, oofda, you need something else. So there are questions. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. And one of our really important foci over the year is energy burden, trying to serve everyone in our county, but also the folks that really need the help, lower income, elderly, disabled, disadvantaged communities. And we need to be careful with electrification, really careful that we're not increasing energy burden, even as we're doing great climate stewardship and everything else. Mm-hmm. We all know that a whole home electrical not too long ago was the evil, right? When it comes to energy costs. Weatherization and all kinds of programs did their best to get folks off electric heat. Well, of course, that's just standard resistance baseboard heat. But even now, we've got to be really careful that we're not disadvantaging the disadvantaged even more in what we do.
Yep. Any we got about 5 minutes left. Any final questions here?
I have a question. This is Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The Winneshiek Energy District has been helping low to moderate income people improve their environment. And so could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Joel, you want to go?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we mentioned this a little bit at the beginning, but you know, that one of the key pieces of work that we do here at the Winneshiek Energy District is host a Green Iowa AmeriCorps team, and that team has been 3 to 6 members, depending on the year, but they are all getting out to over 100 homes per year and saving those homeowners on an average of about $100 per year in mostly lighting upgrades, but they do a blower door test as well. And that can serve as a nice pipeline. We're slowly and surely developing a more trusting relationship with our local community action agency. So anytime that we're working with a homeowner that we think would be a really good candidate for either LIHEAP or for the weatherization program, we are certainly sending them their way. And we do get funds too as well from our local regional housing trust fund that help support that program where we can. Andy, anything else that you should add to that I'm forgetting?
No, I agree the partnerships are really critical. And weatherization, as we know, is one component of what the CAP agencies do, but of course the LIHEAP, fuel heating assistance program is another one. We just, for example, just as an example project, we just had a LIHEAP bump during the CARES, the stimulus funds, and some of those funds came through the state. And we know in Iowa, and like most states, that only about 25% of households eligible for LIHEAP are actually in the program. And that's nationwide. We're actually a little bit above average in Iowa, but that's a pretty sorry number if you really think about it. So if we're really trying to help folks afford energy and address energy burden, in addition to doing clean energy, how do you reach them? Well, it's really hard. We just sort of put our Green Iowa team on this case a few months ago. And in a recent analysis, actually, they were saying, oh, this is one of the most valuable, challenging things I've ever done. We said, you guys need to call 1,000 people in the next few weeks, households locally, who we have in a database, who we've served in so many different ways, and ask, are you on LIHEAP? Can we help get you on this program? Can we help get you the new state dollars, and funds? This is all just about money, but it is about serving low-income communities as well. And we don't know exactly how many new folks were signed up, but that's the kind of project a locally led organization can engage in and make a real difference.
There was a similar industry conversation yesterday on serving low to moderate income communities in Wisconsin, and a similar challenge was brought up with in their state. So thank you, Larry, for bringing that up. Been a really important topic at the conference, this idea of inclusion, that we want to make sure that we're creating clean energy communities for everybody in that community. So thank you very much. Well, hey, we're at 2:59. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I think there were something like 34 of us in here today. So we really appreciate you spending time with us. I want to also thank Andy and Joel and Chuck and Ben for being our panelists and spending time with us. And thanks very much. We'll see you more at the rest of the conference. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Yep. Bye-bye.